Want to increase your personal resilience? What if I told you that you already had all the mental toughness, grit, optimism, growth mindset that you needed?
I'm resilient, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I have head trauma.
It's time for the resilience industry to take a breather. I'm talking about all the books, social media posts, podcasts that encourage you to flourish while others fold, or offer the 3 or 5 secrets of resilient people. Whether it's grit or optimism or a growth mindset, gurus sell this kind of advice about the personal traits you need to be resilient because it sells. But I've become uncomfortable with 2 false impressions left by all these well-intentioned advice givers. First, that resilience is rare, and second, that it stems almost entirely from within. Neither of those is true. I should know. Over almost 20 years in management thinking, I have interviewed scores of experts and influencers who give this kind of advice. So much advice focuses on those sorts of internal traits.
It's not about what happens to you, it's about what you say about what happens to you in your life that determines how far you'll go.
But what gets far less attention is all the external resources that help make us more resilient. Things like family and friends who can offer both emotional support and practical help. Or things like money that allow us to paper over the daily stresses and minor emergencies of life. The overwhelming impression given by the resilience industry is that we just need to work harder, dig deeper, meditate more, and somehow we'll be able to succeed. But it's
very
not
general
all
advice.
us. We can't go it alone. As the management world has embraced the reality that any success is made up of numerous failures, a booming market has emerged for advice on how to bounce back. But the evidence shows that the majority of people are already incredibly adaptable and that there are many, many ways to get over something. In fact, most of us have all the inner strength we need to recover from what life throws at us, including serious trauma. One of the people I talked to about this is an expert named George Bonanno, who studies trauma. And he found in his review of many studies that even when people face something horrible like a mass shooting or a natural disaster, a solid 2/3 majority return to their baseline from before the event. But so far, so much of the emphasis on resilience just focuses on mental toughness. Okay, so try this thought experiment. Imagine you recently moved to a new city for a job. Your new boss is impossibly demanding. Your team is like a viper pit of clashing egos. And on top of that, everything in this new city is more expensive, and that leaves you feeling cash-strapped even though you moved there for a promotion. So daycare, takeout, parking, rent, it's all adding up. You're also now living really far away from everyone you know. So when small problems crop up, like an angry client or a daycare emergency, they just feel huge. And now consider how different this situation would feel if you lived in a cheaper city and you had friends and family living nearby. Your new job would probably still create some stress, but you'd have the wind at your back with plenty of practical and emotional support, and the lower cost of living would make it easier to paper over the stresses and minor emergencies of daily life. Small problems would stay small. In each scenario, you are the same person with the same level of inner optimism or grit. But in the second scenario, you're much more resilient thanks to all the extra external resources at your disposal. The bottom line is that sometimes no amount of inner strength is an adequate substitute for external help. But so many influencers and career gurus are just offering half a toolbox, pushing things that at best amount to coping mechanisms like, mindfulness to help you get through the day. At worst would amount to some kind of retail therapy, basically equating self-care with a spa day or buying a candle. And sometimes these strategies for getting through a hard day can be helpful, and I've used some of them. But often what we need to do is make a more radical change, to admit that this, high-paying job with crazy hours just isn't worth it. Or we need to somehow find a way to repair a relationship that's dragging us down. But so few business self-help authors really focus on this kind of deeper structural change in your life. And I think it has to do with really how they make their careers. Lots of them are actually making their real money by consulting with big companies or giving motivational speeches. And the sponsors of those kind of speeches don't always want to hear a message advocated to their employees like, hey, quit this terrible job and go get a different one. I think that's why so many of them focus on inner strength rather than the kinds of corporate policies or bigger changes that could lead to a more resilient workforce. Things like, parental leave or paid sick time, or even, just adding more employees to avoid understaffing. Those kinds of things cost companies money that they can measure on their P&L. And so it's safer for the business model of the gurus to instead just keep focusing on your personal strength. Too much career advice gives the impression that if we are personally struggling, it's somehow our fault and we just need to dig deeper. We should be wary of that message because personal resilience is not rare. Most of us already have all the inner strength we need. What we really could use is a little more of that external support.
But if you have that resilience, isn't it on you to bring that out? I'm not quite sure I agree with her perspective, but just gonna keep that to myself.